Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. You're listening to the longest running superhero role playing game on Earth. I'm your host, the Game Master, and today we're playing a game about the greatest American hero. But before we get into that, smash that like button, make sure you're subscribed, ring the bell for notifications, and be sure to leave us a comment. It helps us out with the YouTube algorithm, and we just love hearing from you guys. We've got an awesome community here, and it's all thanks to you. So thank you so much for being here. With all that said, let's dive in. The prologue to this one takes place in March of 1981, when a young teacher named Ralph Hinckley is given all the students that the other teachers are positive will end up as criminals and lowlifes. And as such, everyone else has already given up on him. Ralph's got a big heart, though, and hates that everyone's abandoned these kids. So he begins the process of trying to get through to them. But due to their troubled lives, the kids are pessimistic and guarded, making Ralph's job a real challenge. So Ralph decides to take them on a field trip, and they all head out into the desert, where they stop for lunch at a diner where they meet an FBI agent named Bill Maxwell. The school bus breaks down, and when Ralph and Maxwell go for help, they encounter a UFO. The aliens give Ralph a super suit to wear that gives him the powers of Superman and then some. And Agent Maxwell, through his job, can point Ralph in the right direction in terms of threats that Ralph needs to deal with. So the two of them form an unlikely team and get to work trying to make the world a better place. And that brings us to the main plot. Ralph's at work one day teaching his class about World War II. And like a lot of high school kids, when they hear about World War II, they have questions about guys like Captain America and Superman who actually fought in the war. Ralph needs to teach them specific dates, but is glad that for once they actually care about learning something, anything at all. So he incorporates more and more lessons about the Golden Age mystery men. And one night, while preparing his lesson plan, Ralph stumbles upon a black and white photograph showing a man wearing a suit like Ralph's. But the black and white, or excuse me, the black and red on the supersuit are reversed. Ralph asks Maxwell if he can figure out who this guy is. So Maxwell uses his FBI connections to figure it out. And about the time Ralph is done teaching the unit on World War II, Bill calls him up and says, "You're not going to believe this, Ralph, but I think this guy is you." So Ralph and Bill head to Kansas where they find a small farm. And here they meet a man named James J. Beck, who tells them his story. He and his best friend were in a field one night when a flying saucer appeared overhead, and the aliens gave Beck a supersuit and told him to make the world a better place. And he did just that with his best friend's help for a while. Maxwell is a hard boiled pulp noir kind of guy. So he's chewing bubble gum in an effort to not smoke. And he says to Beck, "Let me guess, JJ, power corrupts. Is that it? The little guys from, up there, they abducted you, took the suit back, right? Is that about the size of it?" Beck rolls closer to Maxwell in his wheelchair and smiles. "You are close, Mr. Maxwell. Power does indeed corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. But I only ever saw those little green men you speak of on the day that they gave me the suit. I never saw them again after that." Maxwell says, "Oh, yeah? Well, how'd you manage to lose the thing then?" Beck says he made the mistake trying to steal the Infinity Gems from the Red King. Beck was overconfident and he lost, and the Red King took the suit. And if those little green men ever tried to take it back, the Red King probably used the Infinity Gems on them. Maxwell says he's actually heard of the Red King. Supposedly lives south of the border somewhere, runs a big drug cartel, or at least he did in the 70s. Some real Scarface stuff. Ralph says if this drug kingpin has the other suit, they should go get it back. And Beck laughs. He tells them that if the Red King still has those Infinity Gems, then he'll probably defeat Ralph, who's new at this and keeps crashing into things when he flies. And after the Red King beats Ralph, then he'll just have two suits. They talk more, and Beck does feel bad for his past crimes. But they realize that unlike Ralph, who lost the instruction manual to his suit, Beck kept his. And as such, he knows a bunch of tricks that Ralph doesn't know. So, for instance, Beck teaches Ralph how to use telekinesis. Maxwell, meanwhile, thinks about arresting Beck for his past crimes, but Beck has a terminal illness and doesn't have long to live. So in the time he does have left, Beck goes to California, where he stays with Ralph and Ralph's son, Kevin. Beck teaches Ralph to get better at using his powers, while at the same time cautioning him not to get greedy or give in to the same temptations that ruined Beck's life. He says his suit already gave him great power, but he still wanted even more power in the form of the Infinity Gems. After Beck finally succumbs to his illness and is buried on the farm, Ralph uses his super suit's remote sensing power to search for the Red King. The suit searches, but the Red King and his harem live on counter-Earth now, which is the same distance from the sun that Earth is, but on the opposite side of the sun. And as such, the range is too great for the suit to show Ralph counter-Earth. But the suit does project an image on the wall for Ralph to view that shows the Fountain of Youth and the mansion that the Red King built beside it. And clearly, this used to be the place he ran the cartel out of, but everything's been packed up now. Ralph then searches for the Infinity Gems, and he does locate them. They are someplace cold, surrounded by white crystals. So Ralph decides to fly there. And while he's still a little wobbly when he flies, he's better than he used to be. Ralph flies to the North Pole, where he finds what looks like a huge white mountain. And on the side of it is a massive golden door. It's the Fortress of Solitude. And beside it is a gigantic golden arrow-shaped device which works like a key to the front door. Ralph tries to lift it, but can't. He strains and grunts, and when he takes a step back in defeat, he realizes someone is standing right behind him. So he turns around, and there, larger than life, is the Man of Steel. Ralph stammers and is embarrassed. Superman, in turn, says, "Can I help you?" Ralph tries to explain himself, talks about Beck, the Red King, and the Infinity Gems, and Superman says he already knows most of that, and that it was Superman who took the Infinity Gems from the Red King years ago. Superman explains that he took the gems into the near future. That way, when various people searched for them at the time, no matter where they looked, they could not detect them. Ralph says that's clever. Superman assures Ralph that one of the few things he ever used the Infinity Gauntlet for was to wish that only Superman could use it. That way, in the off chance that someone like Ralph did get into the Fortress of Solitude, it wouldn't work for them. And like Mjolnir, they wouldn't even be able to lift it. Just then, a Superman villain named Lord Satanus shows up. He traveled back in time to this moment, and he gets a surprise attack against his enemy, Superman. So Satanus uses his 36 APs of mystical force manipulation to shoot Superman with an energy blast. And since Superman only has a body of 4 against magical attacks, Superman is knocked out. Then it's Ralph's turn. So he punches Satanus, pulling his punch so his strength is the same as Satanus's body. And Ralph takes his body from 16 APs down to 12 APs. Satanus then shoots Ralph, but his supersuit protects him, and Ralph takes no damage. Ralph attacks again, rolling a 7 and a 6, which hits for another 6 points of damage. And since Ralph doesn't have to move into position, he attacks a second time, and this time he rolls a 3 and a 10, which means Satanus is knocked out. And that brings us to the epilogue. Superman wakes up, and Lord Satanus is placed in the Phantom Zone, since no other prison could contain him. Superman tells Ralph if he keeps getting better at this hero stuff, he might be able to join the Justice League one day. Ralph thanks him, but says one of the conditions the aliens gave him when he was chosen was that his existence has to stay a secret. Superman says that might be advantageous. Since Satanus was from the future, he was probably able to research the superheroes of this era and discover their weaknesses, like Superman's weakness to magic. But since nobody even knows Ralph exists, Lord Satanus probably never read about him in history books and therefore had no idea how to defeat Ralph. Ralph says he's glad he could help, and he gives Superman his phone number in case Superman might ever need help again. Superman gives Ralph a friendly nod, and Ralph clumsily flies home to California, where that night his girlfriend, Pam Davidson, comes over. Ralph confides in her what happened that day, and she's excited for him that not only did he get to finally meet Superman, but the two of them seem to be on good terms. Ralph says that's true, but something Superman said bothers him. Pam asks what's on Ralph's mind, and he tells her that he's not in any history books, and he thinks people in the future will have no idea he ever existed. Pam says that's true of most people. And Ralph admits that for whatever reason, he hoped he would be the exception. And if not for being a hero, maybe he'd be known for education reform or something like that. Pam tells Ralph to stay humble. And Ralph thinks of J.J. Beck and how easy it was for Beck to lose his way. So Ralph does his best to course correct and not go down that path. And for years, Ralph does a good job. But during the crisis on Infinite Earths, Ralph is one of a ton of heroes who fights the Anti-Monitor. And unfortunately, the general public learns of Ralph's existence. And Ralph does let it go to his head. The aliens return and tell Ralph that they will wipe humanity's memories of him, but he has to find a successor. And he does in the form of an attractive, blonde-haired woman named Holly Hathaway, who then becomes the greatest American heroine. And while she does have several adventures of her own, that's a story for another day. We enjoyed this one. Hopefully you did too. If so, as always, smash that like button, make sure you're subscribed, ring the bell, and leave a comment. From all of us here at the longest running superhero role-playing game on Earth, we hope you have a good one, and we'll see you in the next adventure.